You good there?
I'm good.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the first episode of the Gephart Strength Sessions, where I try to help my listeners, you, the listener, find true strength and ultimately get healthier, get stronger inside and out to live a happier and healthier life. First episode, we are here with Cavin Balaster.
Man, it's a pleasure to be debuting, christening the.
It's fun.
Yeah,
We're just gonna have fun. We're just gonna talk about what you do, and
I love that you brought me on because I'm not a big buff strength guy. Like I ain't got killer biceps like Keith Norris or anything.
So Cavin is
this kind of strength.
Cavin's a close personal friend of my wife and I, and author of Feed a Brain. Feedabrain.com is the website, right?
Yep. How to feed a brain nutrition for optimal brain function and repair.
Awesome. And Adventures in Brain Injury, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah, I have the Adventures in Brain Injury podcast, feedabrain.com, adventuresinbraininjury.com.
Right.
Yeah, and the Adventures in Brain Injury podcast.
And so while Cavin is humble and he says he might not be one of these big, strong lifter guys, I know that the nervous system and ultimately the brain controls everything that we do in terms of movement. And a lot of anthropologists believe that the reason humans grew larger brains in the first place was for complicated movement. So, but before we go any further, can you share with the listeners more about your story, why you are here, why you wrote the book, and ultimately, what's the deal with the brain?
Yeah, you got it, man. Yeah. So I have a story. 6.5 years ago, I sustained a severe traumatic brain injury, was instantly unconscious, rushed to the hospital, put on life support. While I was in a coma, I was diagnosed with a diffuse axonal injury. Basically, I was given less than a 10% chance of recovery.
Wow.
So if you Google diffuse axonal injury, you can see over and over and over again. 90% of patients never wake up.
Can you say that a little louder? What is it?
90.
No. What was it?
Diffuse axonal injury.
Wow.
So diffuse means it's all over the brain.
Okay.
Axonal is the axon. So your neuron you have the cell body of the neuron, and then you have an axon that comes off of that.
Okay.
And so it's like, and the signal is passed through the axon.
Cool.
So it's like the wire, right? But when you cut that wire, there's a chemical cascade that can be really, really damaging.
Wow. So
it's the neurometabolism after a concussion sets off this metabolic cascade that leads to a lot of cell death.
Wow. So you had this injury.
So I had this injury, was given less than 10% chance of waking from a coma, even less of recovering. It says that 90% of the 10% that wake up, most are in a vegetative state.
Wow.
So I'm extremely lucky to have woken up. I didn't eat, walk, or talk for months. I was breathing through a tube in my neck. I was receiving nutrition through a tube in my belly, and my left hand was totally flexed inward like that.
Wow.
Long story short, lots of different modalities played into bringing me from like not being able to do anything to being, somewhat functional.
Right.
But about 10 months post-injury, I was steered towards a functional neurologist who did a blood test, saw that I had low protein, low amino acids. Certain amino acids were low.
Okay.
And I was like, Doc, that doesn't make any sense. I eat complete proteins every day, every meal. I have meat.
Right.
I have a protein shake every morning. Like, what do you mean, you eat more meat?
Right.
He was like, no. You're not absorbing the nutrients you're eating. And so he gave me an overview of what leaky gut is. And
you're getting ahead of us because we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about leaky gut.
All right.
I want to talk about that. Describe the injury. Describe what happened.
I fell off a rooftop water tower, hit the front of my head on the steel scaffolding back in the concrete rooftop.
Oh.
Instantly unconscious. Yeah.
So you don't remember it?
No, I have a month of my life is just gone.
How far how high was the rooftop water tower that you fell off of?
It was about 20 feet.
Hit the head in the front of the way down, hit your back of the head on the ground.
Yes.
And immediately unconscious.
Yes.
When did you awake, and what was that like?
So I apparently woke up 12 days after the injury.
Okay.
I have no memory of being awake during that time.
Wow.
But I've seen videos of it, and I'm actually pretty all right with my completely delirious self. I'm I'm a mess there, and I'm like having trouble breathing.
Right.
But I was still funny.
Right.
It was amazing.
I was still funny. So what is the first memory, like from the accident to, what was the first memory that you recall after the accident? How long of time?
So after the first coma, after I woke up from that coma, I developed breathing problems. And like I said, when I watch videos,
Yeah.
I see myself, and I'll be talking, but I'll be like, and then say something, and so I was having a lot of trouble breathing. Right. And what happened is at one point I just start freaking out. I'm like extremely anxious. I'm like, sucking in air like that, and I'm literally crawling up the walls. I'm like, help. Right. And the nurse keeps on calling the chief resident, who is sending up residents to check on me. Right. And apparently the first one came up and was like, okay, checked my vitals and was like, you're fine. You know what? You need to calm down. Let's get you some anti-anxiety drugs, and you'll be fine. So the nurse knew better and called the chief resident again, and they kept on sending people up. Finally, he happened to go by my hospital bed, and he was like, called his residents over and was like, why wasn't I informed of this? You see what's happening here? This patient cannot breathe, and you guys are prescribing him anti-anxiety meds? Like, if you couldn't breathe, you'd be pretty anxious too. Right. Get him intubated right now. Wow. So they ordered an emergency intubation. Intubation is when you put a tube down the throat and pump oxygen in the lungs. Right. And so they did that, put me in an induced coma, and I was out for another week or so while they checked my hardware. Right. When I woke up from that, second coma. All right. Coma 2.0. That's when my memories vaguely began. Okay, yeah. Cool. So then, what is your the journey from then to now? Basically, you're the Western medicine community want to do their certain thing, but what was Cavin's plan, and what ultimately led to your recovery? Why are you sitting here now talking to me? Well, Western medicine is a huge reason why I'm here. Absolutely, I'd be dead. I'd be so dead. Absolutely, if it wasn't for all of the emergency care physicians that kept you alive. They kept me alive, and I went through my medical records, and I found the name of that physician who was in charge of saving my life. Yeah. Huge amount of gratitude for him. Actually, if you open up that book, you'll see in the acknowledgments and appreciation, big bold print. I am out. Yeah, for sure. Totally. So that saved my life. Right. And going forward, the physical and occupational therapy, that was helping me regain my abilities. Right. The relationships that I had with friends and family, the support system. That's the best predictor of a successful outcome. Is the support system. Yeah. So that was huge, and then being steered towards a nutritional protocol. Okay. Where I started getting clarity, and I was like, whoa. But not only nutrition, also the cortical activation, or understanding what we know about the brain. Mm-hmm. Taking what we know about the brain which, you know, it's crazy complex, but we know a lot about the brain and pathways and like where things usually happen. And, you know, every brain's unique. Every brain injury is unique.
Yeah.
But there's so much that we know about the brain, and we can affect neuroplastic change using that knowledge. So learning about the nutrition was huge. I regained clarity because I was actually, the original nutritional protocol was to fix my digestion.
Right.
Because after brain injury, communication to the intestines, to the digestion is all out of whack.
Right.
And intestinal permeability or leaky gut is very common after a brain injury or any neurological insult.
Yeah.
So
well, let's talk about that, because you mentioned it twice already. Many people don't understand the connection between the gut and the brain. So, you know, how important is what you eat, since you're talking about nutrition, to taking care of your gut health to health of the brain. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. The gut-brain axis.
Yeah. So the vagus nerve and all that.
So we have 12 cranial nerves in our brain. The vagus nerve is a huge, amazingly important nerve that innervates all of our autonomic nervous system, like our digestion, all of that. And it's bi-directional communication, meaning that our organs communicate with our brain communicates with our organs.
Right.
And that communication is so important. And understanding how our digestion affects our brain is huge. And anybody who thinks that what we eat doesn't affect your brain, go drink a liter of vodka and tell me the same, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, it's like, when we're talking about intestinal permeability or leaky gut, again, it's very common with brain injury.
Right.
So essentially, what happens is when you eat food, it goes to your stomach, it's partially digested, goes into your small intestines, and there it's broken down further into individual particles that can cross the blood-brain barrier, can cross the gut lining into the bloodstream, into the portal vein.
Right.
So imagine here's your gut lining.
Yep.
You got food down here.
Yep.
You got blood up here.
Okay.
So normally the food gets really broken down, and just itty-bitty particles can fit through these tight junctions into the blood. Right. And then your blood goes, oh, look, magnesium, cool. Oh, look, choline, let me take that. No, it's an amino acid. I can use that over here.
Right.
Fatty acid, I can do stuff with that. Oh, glucose. I can make some energy, right? With intestinal permeability, this lining just gets a little more permeable, right?
Right.
So now, whole food particles, before they're digested, can fit through here and go into the bloodstream undigested.
Right.
And what happens is your blood goes, the hell is that, right?
Right.
It acts the same way it would if you had a splinter or anything else foreign in your bloodstream.
Right.
That creates an inflammation, an inflammatory response. Yeah. Inflammatory cytokines go to the area. Yeah. Cytokines are actually small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier and inflame the brain. And when the brain's inflamed, communication with the gut is reduced, so we get more intestinal permeability, more food entering the blood undigested, more inflammation, more cytokines that cross the blood-brain barrier. So it's this vicious cycle. Right. How do we stop that? Right. So we focus on the intestinal lining. Right. And that was what the original protocol that I did. It was just a simple leaky gut protocol. Cool. Right. But then, all right, now I'm getting some clarity. Right. I'm like, first of all, what the hell happened? Right. Because I've been in a fog for the past year. Right. And so I'm going through medical records, text messages, all sorts of things, trying to figure out what was going on. At the same time, why did nutrition matter?
Yeah.
So I'm relearning how to walk, but we got the internet. So I'm listening to podcasts, I'm watching videos, I'm reading articles.
Yeah.
I even jumped into peer-reviewed literature, and at the same time, I'm reaching out to doctors and practitioners. Like, it's pretty amazing what the internet made possible.
Oh, right.
Makes possible.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I had this injury, even like 20 years ago, this would be a whole different ballgame.
Right.
So I am so grateful for that opportunity. In fact, in the acknowledgments, I know it sounds silly, but I thank the internet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're streaming live. I mean,
Totally.
anybody in the world can be watching.
Totally.
Technology's crazy nowadays.
It's great. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The fact that we can communicate these ideas to really help people.
Right.
And so what has become is that I've been like, I see how powerful this resource is,
right?
And I want to make available the resources that I wish were available to me.
Totally.
And while I am extremely appreciative for the resources that were available to me, it was a lot of digging.
Yeah.
It was a lot of hard work trying to find what I could do to optimize my recovery, optimize my brain function. Because that's what it came down to. To optimize my recovery meant optimize my brain function.
So on that note, who might have been the biggest influence on your recovery? Is there somebody specifically? And was it a certain protocol or a certain method? But more specifically, maybe there was one person or a group of people?
My mom.
Your mom, okay, your mom,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. She was out there within hours.
Wow.
She was by my side, all the time. But then, that was to a point. She was fantastic during the acute stages and all that, and through much of the recovery stages.
Right.
And bringing it further, really, probably Viktor Frankl.
Okay, Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
And what did he provide?
So Viktor Frankl he provided a book called Man's Search for Meaning.
Okay.
So Viktor Frankl was an Auschwitz survivor who just witnessed the most horrendous atrocities ever. Witnessed his whole family murdered in front of him, and just lost all hope of everything.
Yeah.
He's also a psychologist, and he dove into study of what keeps man going when he's lost everything, right? Because that's exactly where it was. And so a man's search for meaning, is finding the meaning in what you're doing, and purpose. Purpose is such amazing fuel. It is the fuel to keep us going.
So these are called the Strength Sessions. I run Gephart Strength out of this facility, the Strength Warehouse. Strength means a lot more to me than just bodily, physically, muscular strength. I had a question I was thinking for you. What does it mean to have brain strength? Now it sounds like you're talking about willpower and things like that. Maybe this is a good time to answer that. But what does, if there were a definition of brain strength, what would that mean to you?
Brain strength, I think resilience.
Resilience. Okay.
So, the resilience to adversity, and also, even protecting your brain, by giving it the nutrition it needs, so that when or if you do sustain an insult, you're resilient to it. You're prepared. Your brain is ready. Right. So part of that would be plenty of EPA and DHA for your brain, regularly.
Yep.
And then supplying many of the nutrients for the brain to make sure that it's not begging for things. And one of the best ways to know that your brain needs to be sure to be fed correctly is actually headaches and migraines.
Oh, wow.
So Dr. Alex Vasquez wrote a book called The Headache and Migraine Revolution.
Okay.
And he talks about how, and Dr. Vasquez, by the way, has 3 doctorates. He's written over 120 articles.
He hasn't been to school that much in his life.
Right.
He's not that smart.
He's an amateur.
Only 3 doctors.
Yeah, only 3 doctorates.
Wow, that's
right?
that's crazy. That's awesome.
It's nuts. And 20 textbooks. Textbooks.
Wow.
Not books. Textbooks.
Wow.
Chronic inflammation to mitochondrial dysfunction. Like, this guy is amazing.
Right.
So he proposes that a lot of headaches are often from mitochondrial dysfunction,
okay,
or from lack of ATP production. What that means is your brain is not getting the nutrients it needs,
right,
to function effectively.
Right.
And that's a lot of why I wrote How to Feed the Brain, is to incorporate these. So Dr. Vasquez is a mentor. I actually, I discovered him from a recovery, and I reached out to him to thank him for the online resources that he made available.
Right.
And he invited me to the International Conference on Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine.
Wow.
So I hopped on the plane for the first time after my injury, which had a whole slew of vestibular issues. We got through it, got to Portland, and then there was an entire day dedicated to the brain.
Yeah.
And on the brain day, he says, "Hey, I'm going to grab a cup of coffee. You want to come?" Of course I want to come.
Yeah.
So we're having coffee. He says, "What was the #1 most effective therapy you did for your brain after your injury?" I said, "Honestly, Alex, healing my gut is what made it all effective."
That's awesome.
And we started talking about the gut-brain axis, which I recently explained.
Right.
And he goes, "Man, we need you on stage. How do you feel about being on stage in about 20 minutes?" And so next thing I knew, I was up there.
How awesome is that?
It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, and looking after I finished up, Dr. V said a couple of words about the importance of a patient perspective and trafficking. Look over this room of hundreds of medical practitioners and medical students. I'm like, I can influence change.
That's awesome.
And so we stayed in touch, Dr. V and I. And I reached out to him at one point to be like, "Hey, I'm looking for a resource about the brain and nutrition.
Right.
Could you point me towards one?" And he was like, "You know what? Not really." I was like, "Well, you should write that." And he said, "Nah, you should." And
So he was the inspiration.
So I did.
Wow.
Yeah. It was. He's amazing. Yeah.
So you mentioned Dr. Vasquez. I have a question. Here's Feed a Brain, by the way. And on the cover of Feed a Brain, there's a quote from Dr. David Perlmutter, who's New York Times bestselling author of Grain Brain. If you haven't heard of that book, check it out. As well as the forwards by Dr. Datis Karazian, who wrote the text for Apex Energetics and their courses, as well as Why Isn't My Brain Working, and Why Do I Still Have Thyroid Symptoms When My Lab Tests Are Normal. He wrote 2 amazing books there. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is, what is it like having them validate your work and being able to put them on the cover of your book? And how does that make you feel? They have Dr. Datis Karazian and Dr. David Perlmutter.
Those are 2 neuroscience giants that I have so much respect for.
Yeah.
And it is just as you said, it's so validating that I'm on the right path and I'm doing what I can do to positively influence the world. And
right.
When collaborative forces start congregating with you,
right,
you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And so it feels really, really amazing to have that. We also did the Feed the Brain interview series
right,
recently, and we interviewed some of the top brain and nutrition experts of our time.
Right.
Like Dr. Karazian, like Dr. Perlmutter, Dr. Terry Walls, Norgie Gaudas,
Wow.
Jessica Flanagan, Andre Nakayama. We had so many really amazing brain and nutrition experts.
Wow.
Speaking into what it means to feed a brain.
Yeah.
Because as you said, you feed a brain nutritionally, emotionally, spiritually, and strength is not just your muscles.
No.
It's all over the place, right?
Totally. You mentioned EPA, DHA. I'm big on the basics. I have clients who time and time again come to me and they're like, hey, did you see on Dr. Oz yesterday? He says, take this. Should I be doing that? And I'm like, well, what time did you go to bed last night? I'm like, well, I was staying up. This is literally a conversation I have with a client. She's like, well, I literally was up until about 2:30 playing Candy Crush. I'm like, okay, so then what Dr. Oz is pushing on you probably isn't as good as just going to bed 3 hours earlier maybe. So I'm big on the basics. Sunlight, get your vitamin D, get optimal movement and train, move your body. What are some of the basics for the brain? And what are the some daily necessities that the brain needs?
Daily necessities. Well, I'm gonna from Dr. Karazian. He says that we need two main things. We need substrate for the brain. So
Okay.
we need fuel,
Right.
and we need stimulation. We need like some other things for the brain. Yes, we absolutely need sunlight.
Yep.
Our visual, and that's part of the stimulation piece of things. So, what do we need? What do all of us need, or what do I need?
Well, what are some basic things that like people watching? Well, let's go into the next question. So. It sounds silly, but of all the ways to die, it doesn't sound silly. It sounds sad. But of all the ways, it sounds morbid. Of all the ways to die, dementia and Alzheimer's are just, in my mind, it's like one of the scariest ways to die. I had an aunt pass from it a few years back, and it's just to see the deterioration, the cognitive decline, month after month, year after year. It's really scary. So let's look at what does the brain need daily through the lens of how do we avoid dementia? How do we avoid Alzheimer's? Because it seems like it's on the rise. It seems like more and more, as the time goes by, more and more people are getting it. So what's something that we can do to feed our brain to avoid those tragedies?
Well, again, we're talking resiliency, right?
Yeah.
Like protecting our brains, preventing these neurodegenerative diseases. So one thing is stable blood sugar.
Awesome.
Stable insulin, stable blood sugar. Most of us are on roller coaster.
Yep.
Blood sugar fluctuations.
Yep.
One of the best health markers that we have that's totally affordable. You can buy it at any drugstore, at least in the U.S. Is a glucometer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get your insurance company to pay for it, but it's really not that expensive.
Under $100.
Like
buy your strips.
Yeah, I mean it's like $20 for the thing, and the strips are like a quarter a piece, if that.
Yeah.
So, and what that does, you got to prick your finger. I know. So people like, really prick your finger all day, and I'm like, I promise you, I've had worse. It's really not so bad.
No.
Like a small price to pay for really important information.
Yeah.
That's a great tracker of your health.
Yep.
Not just one. Like you need to test throughout the day, and then kind of draw and see what's happening with your blood sugar. If it's bouncing around a bunch, well, that's not good. We need to stabilize it, right? And what you can kind of start doing is correlating that with what you're eating, when you're eating, how much you're eating, and the types of foods.
Yeah.
So I think one of the worst things we can do for our brains is start our day with a bowl of cereal and milk.
Yep.
I think it's the worst move. Like, what a terrible way to start it, you know? And it's so funny though. Like, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Don't waste it with too inflammatory, like proven inflammatory foods.
I try to tell my clients, get the idea of breakfast foods out of your brain.
Yeah.
Food is food. There shouldn't be breakfast foods. They're made for kids' food.
Right.
You know, chicken fingers and macaroni and cheese and nuggets. Like there's no kids' food. There shouldn't be any breakfast food. It's totally marketing.
Yeah.
So what should we eat for breakfast?
I love that you said that. Yeah. So I like having fat and protein is a necessity for me.
Awesome.
In the morning, or like when I eat breakfast.
Right.
Honestly, some days I don't eat breakfast. Yeah. I can eat one meal a day sometimes.
Yeah.
When I'm in like a really ketogenic state.
Yeah.
And it's not a problem. You
Right.
know?
Right.
But when I do have breakfast, like this morning, I had some smoked salmon, and that's it. I just had some smoked salmon, really like fatty smoked salmon. It was great.
Yeah.
And I also had a chocolate drink that's not sugary at all. It's like cocoa powder, hot water, and a lot of ghee and coconut oil.
Awesome.
And that's also where, you know, I don't recommend that right off the bat, because
Not for a lot of people.
Yeah, because if you're not ready for that, it's going to go right through you.
Yeah.
And that's no fun.
Not fun at all. Yeah. Yeah. Fat's phenomenal. And I've heard many of my mentors talk about your breakfast is basically telling your brain, hey, this is my recommended fuel source for my body for the rest of the day.
Right.
So if you eat that, you know, inflammatory foods, if you eat the high carbohydrate breakfast, then people will later on during the day be craving the carbohydrates, be wanting the sugar, be wanting to see those glucose spikes.
And it's like Noriega says, like when you're fueled by this kind of metabolism, you're a slave to it. Because honestly, it's kindling. It's throwing paper on the fire, and like you get a flare up for a minute.
Yep.
And then it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, and then you need to throw a little more and flare up.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's kind of the exact same thing with the blood sugar fluctuations.
Right.
You know, you eat, flares up, and then drops down.
Yeah.
And then you eat, and it flares up, and it drops down.
Yeah.
So what if we change our fuel source and we throw a log on the fire, and we let that log heat up, and it doesn't flare up immediately, right?
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit to change our metabolism over to a cleaner, slower, more efficient fuel source, and to utilize that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Peter Attia talks about the area under the curve. So in terms of that roller coaster, like you're talking about, the area under that curve should be a lot smaller, and that will be it's a lot healthier to see less, you know, from smaller margins versus bigger margins in terms of the spikes. And the smaller ups and downs, like you said, is a much more stable way to fuel our body. That's awesome. Let's go back to you a little bit. Let's lighten it up a little bit. I've heard you tell the story a couple times about you're going out maybe on the town, you're in Austin downtown, and potentially the bartender may want to cut you off, or somebody has assumed something. Can you tell? You know what I'm talking about? Can you tell that story? Okay.
Well, you know, it's gotten so much better.
It really has, even since I've known you.
Yeah, seriously. So I have dysarthria, which is slurred speech. And the way I was diagnosed with dysarthria many years ago, and it continued. I wonder if I'd still be diagnosed with it.
Right.
Based on like the way I talk.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I did so that I wouldn't slur my words is I slowed down the rate of speech so that I could speak clearly, and I could give presentations, and I could be concise and be understood.
Right.
But I talked like this, so I was making very sure to enunciate each syllable.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to bouncers and whatnot back in those days, I would walk into a bar and it'd be like, check my ID, and I'd say something that'd be like, man, I'm sorry, I can't let you in.
You've had a few too many.
And I'm like, here's the deal. I'd explain like what's going on. I've damaged my cerebellum, and communication doesn't communicate very well with the left side of my body. And show them like an example like this. Yeah. Essentially a neurological test that that shows that, yeah, damage to my cerebellum for
Right.
sure. And they would be like, oh, okay. And then the bartender would cut me off too, right? And then I'd be like, no, really, I haven't had anything.
Haven't had a
And
drink
then I
yet.
explained my story a little bit. And often they're like, oh, man, what do you want? And I'm like, just a cider, or even I wouldn't be drinking.
Right.
But they almost always like put it down and they're like, it's on me. So, so there's
Well, you
the
get free
perk.
drinks
You
out
get
of it,
free
yeah.
drinks because of it. Oh, I went through hell and back, and all I got was
Yeah.
a lousy free drink.
Waffle Water Tower, you get a gluten-free cider. I don't like that. All right.
Not a good deal.
No, it's not a good deal at all. What is one thing you've been able to do since your recovery that has excited you the most? And I'm thinking of something, and I'm going to share it with you after your answer because I'm curious. But go ahead.
Okay. I mean, my answer
Yeah.
is everything that I could never have had the opportunity to do before. So,
That's awesome.
So, what I consider to be the purpose of life is to positively influence the lives around me. And before my injury, I was positively influencing the lives around me. Like, I had so much love for my friends. We had
Right.
a tight community. It was great.
Right.
Now, I'm able to positively influence a lot of people in a really big way, where I'm changing their lives entirely and helping them to get through all sorts of things. So that is, it's a superpower I've gotten from my injury, is that I am able to lead a more successful life by my own standards.
Yeah. Wow. So is there one thing that you have not been able to do that you're looking forward? Oh, before we go there, I remember what I was thinking of. You posted 6 months ago, maybe, and I've only known you for just over a year now, but 6 months ago, you posted a video of you doing a backflip, or was it a front flip off of a diving board?
Both.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And you were saying how that was, an impossible thing to even fathom at one point in your recovery, and now you can hop off. And then around that same time, you were at my house and we were hanging out, just socializing with friends, and we were playing guitar together. And that was another thing that you had done before your surgery. And so those are things that I was like, I wonder if these, like the first time you picked up a guitar and played a chord, you're like, wow, I can actually move my left hand and my right hand in unison and strum a chord.
Yeah, that was actually a huge part of my recovery.
Being able to play music?
Yeah, I sat at a knee walker talk for months, and my left hand was totally flexed inward. So what my occupational therapist did was made a brace that would push my wrist a little bit more. It just kept constant pressure right there.
Okay.
And then we would move it a little bit more each time.
Yeah.
And when I could finally wrap my hand around a guitar, that's exactly what I did.
That's awesome.
And as soon as I developed breathing problems, which is why I couldn't talk.
Right.
And they did a throat surgery eventually that they might not have been able to do. So I'm extremely lucky that was able to be done as well, because we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
I wouldn't be having any conversations if that surgery wasn't done. Wow. But as soon as it was done, and I remember the chief surgeon came in and he was like, "How you doing, Cavin?" And I mouthed that I'm okay, because that's how I communicate.
Yeah.
He's like, "You can talk, go ahead." I'm okay. And it's like, whoa, he can talk. It's nuts. And like, those were the words I chose for my first words. But really, they're pretty appropriate first words.
Pretty
I am
appropriate.
okay. So as soon as I was able to talk again, and as soon as it cleared me to start belting, he's like, "Oh, you can talk, but do not yell." I started playing little songs, right? And
What was the first song you played?
That's a super interesting question. And see, this is going to go for a long time.
So it was a concise version because we're getting close here.
I know. So while I was in a coma, my mom got my guitar and played music for me while I was in a coma. Wow, which was beautiful. And the song she kept on playing was Blackbird by the Beatles.
Oh, I remember you telling me that.
Take these broken wings and learn to fly.
Wow.
And I was in a coma. I don't remember I knew that.
Yeah.
But when I got my guitar, the first song I tried to play was Blackbird by the Beatles.
That's awesome. What a great song. Yeah.
So appropriate.
So, do you have any morning or daily routines that you do?
Totally. So you talked about the backflips
Yeah.
in Barton Springs, or front flips. I do both. So the reason why is to stimulate the vestibular system. I also, before I do that, and I don't always make that, I try to make it a couple times a week. And before I do that, I hop in the sauna. So near-infrared sauna therapy has been a huge part of my recovery as well.
Awesome.
And you can learn more about that at feedabrain.com/sauna.
Cool.
And so I hop in the sauna for 20 minutes till I start sweating. I think sweating is important for everybody to do every day. Everybody should sweat a bit.
Yep.
Either, get your heart rate going and sweat a bit, or hop in the sauna or something, right? So I get my core body temperature up, right? Mm-hmm. And then I go over to Barton Springs and I'll do a front flip or a back flip. And the reason why that has to do with vestibular.
Right.
Training
your ear balance, all that.
Yeah. And it's kind of specific to me why I'm spinning the way I am.
Right.
I'm working with functional neurologists that really get into why we're doing different tactics that we're doing.
Right.
So I'll jump off the diving board. So it's going from hot to cold also, and that brings the hot brings up BDNF, the cold brings up BDNF, and the juxtaposition, the going from these extremes, does it even more.
Yep.
And if I'm not going to Barton Springs, I hop into a cold shower and mimic the same.
Yep.
The same thing.
Love cold showers.
Yeah.
You mentioned BDNF, and we know that training with weights increases BDNF. If you know what BDNF is, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
It's like fertilizer for the brain.
It's like fertilizer for the brain. How important is, well, I guess you said it, how important is BDF in the prevention of cognitive decline?
Yeah, well, I talked about the brain as a garden, and you have 86 billion plants in your garden, 86 billion neurons in your
big
brain.
garden.
Big garden. Right. Okay. So essentially, if a plant's wilting and dying, then that's similar to Alzheimer's. If we're running with this analogy,
right.
Where the plants are wilting and dying.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily take somebody with a botany degree to nurse that plant back to health.
Right.
It takes somebody with a green thumb.
Yeah.
With a neurological green thumb.
Yep.
To get the sunlight, water, nutrients to it, right?
Yep.
Now, if it's gone past the point of return, it's harder to nurse a plant back to health that it's gone too far.
Right.
And that's where we're talking, Alzheimer's and dementia when it's gone too far. Yep. What's really difficult is that so much of this it needs to be self-actualized.
Right.
You need to do it yourself. Nobody's going to force food down your throat, and that's the most important aspect of it. So as your brain becomes degenerated, you revert to the same behavior that you always do, whether it's working or not. Yep. And so we need to change that behavior. So BDNF is a great way to take those neurons that aren't really doing super well, and giving them more of what they need to spark up,
Yep.
come alive.
And I've mentioned before to people that, in terms of the dementia and things, talking about the corpus callosum and how complicated movement like I do in here really helps to shorten that gap of the corpus callosum, which is a band of nerves that separates the left and right hemispheres. And so, like I mentioned early on, a lot of anthropologists think that, our brain is its size because we needed to develop complicated movements and coordinated movements of the left and right side, of the upper and lower body, and all these things. So I have to think that because of the BDNF factor, right? What exactly does BDNF do for the listeners? It's fertilizer for the brain. We know about it, creating new neurons, maybe neural pathway creation and development. Can you talk for a second on what BDNF actually can do for us?
I think you just said it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the great aspects of BDNF. Enhance synaptogenesis, all of that. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. There's a quote I love. It's by Neil Gaiman, and it goes, the moment that you feel that you are possibly walking down the street naked, that's the moment that you may be actually starting to get it right. I love that quote. Do you feel like you're exposed? Do you feel like you're letting your passion in your heart? Are you releasing that to the world with this book?
This actually isn't the huge exposure that was going to be my book.
Okay.
My book was going to be called Lights, Action.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which was going to be my story.
Yeah.
About everything that happened. And honestly, talking to friends and family, like I went through my entire experience on the Adventures in Brain Injury blog.
Yeah.
A year after my injury, started getting clarity, started researching what the hell happened.
Yeah.
And then started writing about it. And so on the year anniversary, I would write about where I was a year ago. And, for each important event. So when it happened, I wrote about what I was told happened.
Yeah.
On the day they tried to extubate me, wrote about that. The day I actually was extubated, on and on. And I'm going through text messages, all this, right? Very cathartic. So I went through much of that, and I interviewed friends, family, learning into that. That was exposing myself.
Wow.
That really was exposing. And interestingly, I'm totally comfortable being exposed at this point.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, when you're peeing in a bottle and being like, "Hey, can you throw that?" Or no, you're not even talking, just holding it up and for somebody to take it,
swishing it around,
right? And you're getting bathed by nurses, and people are cleaning up your soiled pants and things all that stuff goes out the window. And it's
this is me, people.
This is me. It's cool. Yeah. So that was exposing.
Okay.
And I was going to publish Lights, Action, and it was just going back through all of that, and bringing my friends and family back through all of that.
Right.
I say it like this: I'd gone through the pain. That was important to go back and analyze what happened and feel that pain and process it.
Right.
But then it was about bringing your gains. And I recognize, I can bring something that is useful to this world, to everybody in this world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right now. So that's what I'm doing with How to Feed Your Brain.
Love it.
And maybe in the future we'll do Lights, Action. This will definitely be part of
autobiography will come out. Yeah, for sure. So, what is your favorite book? And let's say you can't say How to Feed Your Brain.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay,
I'm
just
so sick of that book, man. Boy, what is my favorite book? That's a really difficult question.
First thing that comes to mind. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, that's a dirty trick. That's like asking.
I shared a couple of these.
Beatles or Rolling Stones, you have to pick one. It's like, no, I don't.
That's really funny that you say that, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, this is what I love about the Facebook Live. It's totally unedited. Totally, right. There's some questions, but it's unscripted. This is great. You'll have to think about that one and let our listeners know what's going on.
Yeah.
Where do you want to be in 1 year? A couple more questions, Briley. Just a couple more.
Cool. Where do I want to be in 1 year? I want to influence more of a change than I can imagine.
Cool.
You know, I want to give the resources that people need to feed their brains optimally.
Yeah.
To supplement their brains optimally. To get these meals pre-made, which we're working on, and to improve hospital nutrition.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I don't know if that's a year gig, but that's something that's definitely on the radar.
It's gonna be
beyond on the radar. That's gonna happen.
Yeah, totally.
We're working towards that.
You mentioned supplement. I wasn't going to ask this question, but I am now. I'm a strength coach. I'm a personal trainer, and actually twice this week I've had 2 different clients ask me about pre-workout supplements. Now, most of these pre-workout supplements that you'll see at the store have artificial sweeteners, whether it's sucralose or aspartame or asulfame potassium, asulfame K, you may see it, high fructose corn syrup, or a combination of a couple of those or all of them, as well as artificial colors and things like that. So they ask me what I recommend. I always recommend things that drive the nervous system so that there can be a bigger neural drive to recruit more muscle fibers. So I like acetyl-L-carnitine, I like beta-alanine, I like alpha-GPC, glycerylphosphocholene, I like, I put other things, phosphatidylserine is another one that I like. I like things that stimulate the brain to drive the nervous system to recruit more muscle fibers so that we can lift more weight and see more gains and see more results, and whether we're gaining muscle or losing fat. What are some supplements? And I know I just mentioned a couple of them. Are there other ones that you like to stimulate brain health?
Yeah, I like to get things close to food, very close to food. So actually, if you go to feedyourbrain.com, there and scroll down a little bit, there's an opt-in for a free supplement guide.
Cool.
And on that, again, I like to get close to food. I think, humans didn't evolve eating isolated nutrients in pill form.
Right.
There's lots of reasons why supplements have a lot of uses, like depleted soil, factory farming, like lots of things going on that are going to give us less nutritious food source, right? But I think having the food not isolated, so we're getting all the compounds that come with it, is super important. So on that supplement sheet, you're going to see things like desiccated organ meat pills, which is awesome because honestly, most people I didn't like eating organ meats. I still don't really do it as much as they should, but I got the supplements, which is fantastic.
That's actually our next Facebook Live. My wife and I, we freeze liver into little cubes, and then we blend it in NutriBullet with some strawberries with just a little bit of water, and just gives you a little shot.
That's awesome.
Super simple. Just tastes like musty strawberries. You're getting your organ meats, and it's not really that bad a taste.
It's not that bad.
Cool.
Yeah. Actually, in the Feed the Brain book, I talk about doing freezer organ meat pills.
Yeah, perfect.
And I would make liver pills.
That's awesome.
And I would just pop them and swallow them.
That's cool.
Yeah, but
so you got the desiccated organ meat.
Desiccated organ meat pills.
Okay.
Kelp and dulse or sea vegetables.
Okay.
So I like switching up my sea vegetables as well. So rotating those.
You can't go wrong with just gobs and gobs of vegetables.
Yeah, and sea vegetables specifically.
Awesome.
Like they're, we get way more iodine. Specifically, like the main source for iodine for standard American diet is iodized salt.
Yeah,
and the reason we iodize the salt is because we weren't getting iodine from from our diets. So, so yeah, sea vegetables, awesome source of iodine in a whole food form.
Yeah.
That's just been desiccated and put into a capsule.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. Rapid fire. All right. Okay. Rapid fire. This first thing comes to mind when we're doing this. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
He doesn't know what's coming right here. Favorite ice cream?
Ooh, no. Sweet rituals, bacon and God, what else? Bacon and something is
Franklin's barbecue or La Barbecue?
never been Franklin's.
Ooh, have you had La Barbecue?
Yeah.
Okay. Bucket list travel destination.
Bucket list travel destination. Lots.
Give me one.
Japan.
Chicken or beef? Blonde or brunette?
Not applicable. I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Beatles or the Stones?
See, look at that. That's. I'm not answering that question.
Frontal lobe or cerebral cortex?
Ooh. Well, cerebral cortex.
Bacon or sausage?
Depends.
Breakfast or dinner?
Dude.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Good rapid fire. Shall we see if there's any questions here that people want to ask?
See what we got.
Sean, I don't know if you're still on. I love that this is just totally live, unedited, unscripted. Sean Tracy, a good friend of mine, asked, do you think your injury has ultimately put you further ahead in life, success-wise, than if you never had your injury?
I feel like we answered that when I was like, it's given me this superpower to actually to influence a greater change in the world. Yeah, to influence people's lives in a bigger way and more people at that.
That's awesome. My wife asked, what is one piece of encouraging advice that you can give to someone suffering from a brain injury?
Suffering from a brain injury, I think first of all, suffering from a brain injury is kind of a choice of mentality. Okay. So I kind of have a problem when people are like, oh, you suffered from a brain injury, whatever. And yeah, I did. It hurt at first because the definition of suffering is when we are exposed to a continual painful stimuli.
Right.
Once that painful stimuli is removed and we continue to suffer, we're continuing to suffer because of the stories we continue to tell ourselves.
Yeah. And
that's largely within our control. So advice that I could give is understand what's in your control, what is not in your control. Accept the things you cannot change. Yep. Change the things you can. And acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is being like, right now, I can't walk, but guess what? And I accept that. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to try to walk. And I'm not going to get better at doing this, because as I continue to work at it, I end up being able to regain my ability.
Right. That brought up a question that I had. I didn't ask, but I want to ask it because you mentioned suffering, because you mentioned the doubt, and Claire's asking about encouragements. I have some people in my life that I know deal with self-doubt, that deal with lack of self-confidence, and affects myself as well. I'm sure it's affected you from time to time. We all have it at some point. Seneca, who's one of my favorite philosophers, a Stoic philosopher, said we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And that's exactly what you just said, to a degree, where afterwards we still allow our suffering in our brain when really we don't have to suffer anymore. We suffer more in our imagination than in reality. I have to think it's a neural pathway thing. I have to think that it can be corrected and even fixed. So what are some ways that we can improve our confidence levels, feel stronger when going into a room or a meeting, or just in general? Just how can we improve that idea of the brain that, hey, we're fine, we're good, we should be content, be confident.
You're going deep in some real questions. But
I think this can help people, you know,
prepared for this, and this is actually something I'm working on developing a course on.
Oh, awesome! That's
future book. Let's see.
Can't wait to hear about it.
But okay, here's the basis of it. Remember, I said our brain is our garden. We have 6 billion plants in our garden. We have 6 billion neurons in our brain.
Right.
Our thoughts are like the seeds, and our attention is the sunlight in water. And ask any neuroscientist, any neurobiologist, any functional neurologist, anybody who understands brain plasticity, they'll tell you that what we give our attention to, those pathways grow, those neurons grow, those plants grow. And they get stronger, get fatter trunks and whatnot, you know? So we all have weeds in our garden. And you know, weeds, you know, habits we'd rather not have, thoughts we'd rather not think, painful stimuli that we continuously expose ourselves to, that we hate, you know. And when we can harness this understanding of like, my attention is the sunlight and water. And it's not like we can reach in and pull the weeds. You know, we need like super intricate brain surgery that, again,
doesn't exist.
86 billion neurons, doesn't exist at all. So what happens when we give our attention to the flowers we want to grow? Those flowers grow, and it doesn't mean we can ignore a problem away. It doesn't work that way. Like we need to address the weeds. And be like, all right, I see you over there, and you're okay over there. I'm gonna give sunlight and water to this over here because I am able to do that. So when we harness the power of our attention, and we can start giving our attention to the plants we want to grow, flowers we want to grow, those begin to grow, and the roots end up taking over the weeds. And that's what's really cool about that. That's the way everything works. So that's a neuroscientist. That's neuroscience. It's also business, politics, relationships. If we don't change things by dismantling the old, we change things by building up the new.
That's awesome. So it's about the thoughts. It's about what we think about, what we put our brain to do. That's awesome. I don't think there's any more questions. I love that, though. Let's see. Is there anyone else? All right. Well, that's it for now. The books, How to Feed a Brain, Nutrition for Optimal Brain Function and Repair. How can people get a hold of you?
You can go to feedabrain.com.
Okay.
The book's on Amazon. I also do consultations. I work with brain injury survivors, loved ones of brain injury survivors, and I work with people looking to optimize their brain function and live happier, healthier lives where they do cool shit. You know?
That's awesome. Yeah. And if you're lucky, you may get an autographed copy like me and my wife did. I love that. Cavin, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. See you guys.